Hopefully we have appeared over on Facebook and also on YouTube as well. So fingers crossed we are there. So I can see that we're online on both. So hopefully we get a couple of you popping in a minute. So it is the 7th of the month. So that means that we do have a new crafter flower. And I think it's kind of like an original classic kind of flower. So it is the Builder Flower Rose, which is very, very pretty. So hopefully I'm going to be sharing 2 different techniques with it to maybe give it a different look. We do have lots of inspiration on our, I think it's on our Instagram account with this one. And there is so much beautiful florals to be seen over there. So I am going to move you guys down to my tabletop so you can see the set and what is going on. Okie dokie, so I'm going to move you down. Also, if you do share this live stream, you are in with a chance of winning a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. The lovely Aurum is behind both of the badges on Facebook and also on YouTube as well. So this one is the Crafter Flower Rose, sorry. So you can see here that we have 4 different layers for the rose. We have a grouping of 3 leaves and a single leaf as well, which is slightly larger than the largest leaf on this stem. So as you can see, we do have the layering guide on our packaging as well. So that's really going to help you layer these pieces up. But I don't think you're going to need too much help with this one. It's really easy to layer. So, pardon me, as you can see, we have the dies here. And I'm going to start off by just cutting this from some gradient cardstock. So I have my shades of purple gradient cardstock here. And let's get into cutting that rose. So we are going to need all 4 even, of the various colours that we have in this one. So I'm going to pop that down. Now purple is not a colour that I normally use, but I asked my little boy to pick out some colours for flowers today, so that's why we have a different shade today. So we can use the layering guide to see which one is going to be the lightest, and then we're going to work up through the layers that way. So to make this go a little bit quicker, I am going to trim my little pieces of cardstock so we can do 2 cuts in one. Okay, so there is the first layer. I'm going to grab the second layer and cut that one too. And then I can run these through. I don't feel it's necessary to pop these down with some tape, only because they have a lot of room, and if they move and shift a tiny bit, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I do have lots of ink behind my little mini bottom, kind of getting in the way. Okay, so you can see here that because this one was a really detailed cut, that it hasn't gone all the way through. So I am just going to grab my metal plate. So, but before I do that, you can see that the solid outline is cut perfectly. So I can remove that one, and then I can add the 3rd layer down there. I'm going to pop this back into place. So all you need to do is kind of just hover it over, and it will stick in to where it has recently cut. So that's going to be cutting in the same place. I can then grab my metal plate. Now with the metal plate, you are going to want to come back from the edge. If they're all layered up one on top of the other with the metal plate on this edge, it won't go through the machine. You kind of need that little wedge effect to get it through. It does take a little bit more pressure to turn once that plate's in. And always with this metal plate, pop it on the top of your dies, not on the cutting edge. I made the mistake of using it the other way around, and it did cut into it, and then it left little marks onto my thing. Okay, I'm just gonna turn the sound off my computer so we don't get all those beeps. You can see that this one is cut perfectly too. Oops, a little bit fiddly. We have a little inlaying piece there, which I could have removed later on. So then we're just gonna cut this layer, and then we have the leaves as well. Now I wanted to show you, if you only have one, color of green, that we can get various effects with it. So I'm gonna cut one from this one, just kind of guess 3 inches. Not far off. I'm going to pop the solid 3 down. Grab my plate, my little sandwich, and pop that through. There we go. So now I just need to cut the 3rd and the 2nd leaf pieces. So I'm just going to grab those out. This is Forest Glades cardstock. I have run out of my Green Meadows gradient set, which was a little upsetting, but you know, once you need something, you kind of work a way around it to get the look that you're after. So that's what we're going to do today. Oops, sticking myself to everything. Does anyone have a favourite crafter flower, and is the rose yours? That would be nice to know. Okay, so I have all of my little leaf pieces. I did want to keep that piece, and I'm not going to get rid of the inlaying pieces of that one. So I'll show you why in a sec. So I have my pieces. I seem to have misplaced my other purple one, and it's stuck behind there. Okay. Things just seem to go missing when you want them, don't they? You know you've popped them down, but they're not in the exact place. So we're gonna adhere these pieces together. I'm just gonna use some glue tape, but you can use wet glue. Hello Jessica, and everyone else out there who has joined. Thank you for joining us. So this one I'm gonna line up with this little in bit here and this little bit here. Hopefully if I move it down a little bit, there we go. You can see it a little bit more easily. Line up there, and that top edge. If you're off slightly with these, I think it doesn't matter. I think it's still gonna look great. And this glue tape is fabulous because it comes off in those little dots. So it doesn't put adhesive where it's not needed. Oops. Trying to wiggle that in. There we go. As you can see, I've moved this slightly, so it needs to just pop round. There we go. And then last but not least, we have this purple. Really dark. I think this one is the Midnight Violet. Okay. Pop that one in. Gone quiet while I am concentrating. And there we go. So there is the very pretty rose. Now I only had one colour of the green. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to keep all these pieces within this, because this is going to mean that it's not so floppy. So if I tried to ink blend on top of that while I took it out, it would be a little bit more difficult than leaving it in where it is. So I'm going to take my Forest Glades ink. And we are going to make this slightly darker. So this is the cardstock that matches, but because we're adding this another layer of colour down, it is going to be slightly darker. I'm using my large blending tool because we've got quite a large area here. Okay, so, oops, I was only supposed to do this one. Sorry everyone. Okay, so I've done the Forest Glades with that one. This one's slightly darker now, but we're going to go in with the Evergreen to make this even darker. But we could have waited till that was dry and then added another layer of the Forest Glades if you wanted to, but to save time, I've just gone with that darker colour. So I can now remove these pieces and this piece. This one's a little more fiddlier than the other ones. There you go. So I have my 3 pieces of the leaf. Remember, you have that single leaf in there as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to move my comments down a little bit so I can see. Add that on top. Lines up really easily. Oops. And then this one. Line the stem up, and then everything else should kind of fit in place. If you do need to kind of tweak them a little bit, that's a great, you could always use some wet glue, but this alternate glue is really good for this because it's not permanent until you really give it a good old stick down. So there we go. So there is our normal flower and leaf there. I wanted to try a different technique too. Okay, so I have my mini blossom again, and I'm going to cut it out of some white cardstock. So I cut some white cardstock panels down. Just going to use those pieces again. So we have layer 1, layer 2. Make sure that there's nothing left in here because then it won't cut as pristinely as it should. If you do get a bend in your metal plate, you just bend it the other way and it's good to go again. I popped the inks behind my mini blossom again. Oh, I will never learn. Never, never. There. Really want to keep them in the cardstock, but sometimes when they've cut that clean, it's a little bit difficult to do. And I'm going to go for this one and the small one. I think I can fit maybe the single leaf on here as well. I might need a bit of glue tape to keep all these down, just to get everything through in one go. So hopefully that will all stick there. Trying to make sure I've grabbed it properly so nothing moves. Hopefully it's all still in that white. Oh no, I didn't realise that the blending tools are all sold out. Okay, so if you did want to get your hands on one, it may be a good idea to sign up for the notification. So when they do come in stock, you will get an email. So you'll be one of the first ones to get your hands on them. Sorry about that, everyone. Oops. So, okay, I'm trying to keep them in place. Just going to move that over. So I seen a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful card by the lovely JC. So he had a white one. I don't recall the colours he used, but I did stamp a white flower in one of my other lives, and these are the colours I used. So I'm going to be using those ones. So for my first layer, I just wanted to add a tiny, tiny touch of colour around the outside. So I'm just going to move everything out, and that. I am going to use my little blending tool. I'm sorry everyone that you haven't been able to get your hands on them, but they should be back in stock, so just sign up for those notifications. So I'm going to be using vanilla cream. So this is the lightest colour that I do have, and it has a touch of warmth to it. So I'm just very lightly, you probably can't even see it on the screen, but I just wanted it just touching those edges, so it's very, very light. It's like a tea stain around there. Okay, so I'm then going to move on to the second layer. I've tried to keep most of the pieces in here so it's more solid, and I'm going to go in with vanilla cream again, but this time I'm going to do it darker, and I'm going to start from the center. So the pieces where it's going to be the darkest is going to be around here. Okay, so I'm just going to add that vanilla cream and blend that out. But whatever blending tools that you do have will work for this technique, even if it's like a sponge or a finger dauber, maybe your makeup brushes, they work too. Okay, so I've done that to add a light dusting of colour on there. I'm then going to grab these ones. Oh, my leaves fell out, but we should be alright. So this is the third layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with, I don't know whether or not to, yeah, I'm going to go with this one again. Vanilla cream. I'm going to see how dark I can get this one. I may need to add a touch of another colour, where I think if I do this one darker, so this means you're only going to need 1 or 2 inks for this effect as well. And I do love ink blending onto die cuts like this because it gives it more depth. So we'll be able to see the two next to each other, and this one's going to have more of a softness about it. Okay, so that one is darker, and I'm then going to move to another ink colour. I could use the vanilla cream again and go really, really dark on this last piece, but I'm going to go with hazelnut. Okay, get a darker colour on this one. Okay, so there we go. I'm then going to move on to my leaves. So this one I want really light. I'm going to go with my frayed leaf. I didn't necessarily need to keep this one in because it's quite solid as it is, so it won't bend as much as the delicate pieces. Okay, so there's the frayed leaf. Grab my other piece of leaf. I'm going to keep that one in because that one definitely needs to be in that piece of cardstock just to stabilize it a little bit. I then have my forest glades. And then, last but not least, the evergreen. Okay, hopefully I don't get the colours on those. I should really move those out of the way, but I didn't. I got a tiny touch of that green on. Okay. I could trim it off if it really bothered me, which I may do. So I'm going to take these pieces out. Again, they can be a little fiddly, but just persevere and it will pop out. I'm probably making this look more difficult than it actually is. Things are just hooking each other. Okay, there we go. Come on, out you pop. There we go. So I did get a tiny bit of green on there. Just, oops, just trim it off. It's not a lot on there. This one probably could have done with a slightly darker shade, but we'll see how it goes. so we can build up our flower again. So I have the nearly white bottom, the one we did with a light dusting, oops, of the vanilla cream. Then the one we did with a slightly darker layer of vanilla cream. So you can see once you get the hang of where these go, it does become a lot quicker and easier. Now this might not stick 100% right away because we have that ink down there, so it is kind of wet. Even though it doesn't feel wet, it does take a lot of extra time for the glue to kind of grab it when you do have ink blending going on. Oops, pop that into place. Oops, stick. I don't know if I've not put glue on there or that's the ink blending not helping. Okay, and then the leaf. Oops. There's one. There we go. Oops. Yep, that ink did need a tiny bit more time. But there we go. So we have a beautiful white rose there. And this kind of reminds me of that singing flower in Alice in Wonderland. So there we go. Okay. Move this out of the way. And then I wanted two backgrounds for my little roses. I wanted to use the same stencil, but wanted to do two different ideas. Okay, so I have the bubble wrap stencil. And for my purple one, I'm going to have a grey background. So I'm going to take some tape. And I'm going to add this to the back. So it's going to keep it in place. I think the bubble wrap is one of the lovely Sue's favourites. Okay, I used my grey blending tool for my green, so I'm going to have to get another grey one. Okay, one sec. Okay, I'm back. I just have to use a mini one because I should have used my little blending tools for my green, but I didn't. Okay. So I'm not gonna add it everywhere. I'm just gonna kind of centralize it. I'm using the Silverstone ink. So this isn't the lightest, but it's the second lightest. And because we're using the blending tools, it will look lighter as well. There we go. Yay! So there we can see it, really kind of soft looking foggy colour there. So I think that one's going to work particularly well for our purple flower. Okay, so you can add whichever sentiment that you want on there. And then I wanted a even softer looking background for our white flower. Sorry, voice went very strange. So I'm going to pop that down again. Okay, and I'm going to be using some embossing ink. And I'm just going to squidge this through. Now I'm not worrying about this being perfect. Okay, just squidge that through. Can then remove this. That is going to need a wipe down because it's quite sticky. Bring in my paper from before. I do think that a piece of scrap paper is a very, very handy tool. And I'm going to be using the translucent pearl embossing powder. So this is a clear embossing powder, and it's got some beautiful glitter in there as well. I'm going to add that over. Remove that out of my way. And then I'm going to heat set this. It's always best to have your heat tool nice and warm before you do apply the heat to the cardstock. That will reduce the amount of warping. As this one melts, you can see the glitter twinkle, which is very pretty when it does start melting. Okay, so it's very subtle. It's just a clear sheen that we have there with that really pretty glitter going on. So I think this is going to be perfect for a white flower, so it doesn't really distract away from it. Okay, so I can then take my white flower there, pop them into place. So there are many different sentiments you can use to add on here if you wanted to. So all different occasions. A rose works for everything. So if you did a yellow one, that does symbolize friendship. So here are the two different looks. And you can see that just by swapping out either cardstock or ink blending, you can get a very different effect from the rose. So here are the roses a little more close up there. Okay, so I'm going to move you guys up now. It was a short but sweet one today. Hopefully it was sweet. Okay, so hello there everyone. We really do hope that you are inspired by our new craft a flower rose. Thank you so much for joining us over on Facebook and on YouTube. We will see you again very, very soon. See you soon. Bye-bye.